Welcome to the Week 8 edition of the G5 Beat. This is Josh Jones with Baker Loy and John Duncan. John, you got some breaking news for us, don't you?
I do, yeah. Literally right before we started recording, Pete Thamel from Yahoo breaks on Twitter that the AAC is expected to examine expansion this week with 6 schools that are expected to send in applications to the American Athletic Conference. Those 6 schools being FAU, Charlotte, North Texas, UTSA, Rice, and UAB. Now, it's exciting times for all 6 of those programs, of course. Now, we talked a couple episodes ago. I kind of had the suspicion that UAB was definitely going to be at least one of the teams, going to leaving Conference USA to go to the American Conference. I didn't know that UAB was going to bring most of the Conference USA with them. Just definitely exciting times for these schools. But it is, you kind of have to wonder, like, what's Conference USA's move going to be next? Guys, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it was the first, I think it was expected. I'm glad they were finally getting some movement on this. For Conference USA, though, we were talking about this before we started recording. I think they had to start pulling from the FCS ranks. John, to your point, what you said, JSU, James Madison, Sam Houston. What do you guys think? You think anything differently? I don't see any other option for them, really.
So I think it's going to depend on what happens with. I think the rest of the teams. Are they looking to stay, or is the Sun Belt coming to potentially poach some of Conference USA, or does Conference USA possibly view their leftover teams in a position where they can poach from the Sun Belt? That's what's really going to be interesting here to see where the power shift is, But I think there's definitely some FCS teams that are going to be in the in the news here in the upcoming weeks as possibilities to end up joining Conference USA. That's for sure.
Yeah, I definitely don't think anybody's leaving the Sun Belt to go to Conference USA at least anytime soon. But it's going to be kind of awkward because there's a couple teams in the Conference USA that left the Sun Belt years ago to go to Conference USA, and that being Middle Tennessee and Western Kentucky. Do you think the Sun Belt would welcome them back, or is it kind of, hey, you had your chance and you're on your own now?
I think it really just depends on what the situation is. There's definitely been a lot of chatter out there that maybe one of the top teams that the Sun Belt has interest in from the remaining teams in CUSA is Marshall. And there's been some chatter from Marshall's camp that they really want Western Kentucky to come along with them. And if that's the case, then, there's one of those teams right in the forefront of what you mentioned a moment ago. So you're right. It is going to be interesting to see how some of the current Sun Belt teams, the presidents, the athletic directors view some of those teams that, really just recently left the conference to move to what they considered at the time to be greener pastures in Conference USA. So I don't know, man. It should be interesting to watch it play out. It already is. But, hey, like we said, thank God we got some movement today and saw something from the American, right? We have something else to talk about that's actually factual.
Exactly. Now, another quick thing that we'll have to monitor going forward, too, is that, a lot of people don't remember, but I believe it was a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I can't remember exactly, but Louisiana Tech AD kind of took some shots at the Sun Belt. Yeah. So he might be regretting those words now. I don't know. I can see the Conference USA sort of staying packed. I definitely can foresee Marshall and maybe even Southern Miss making the leap over to the Sun Belt. But the issue there is, having to pay exit fees out of Conference USA, which Pete Thamel reported is $3 million per school. And then on top of that, you'll have to pay entrance fees into, whatever conference you join. So for, a school like Southern Miss, do you have that right now? Conference USA, the media deal has been awful, and we've talked in exhaust about how awful it is and about how it doesn't bring in any, revenue for these schools. I mean, that's a lot to ask. I hope that, they're able to pull that money together and get out because it does appear that Conference USA is a sinking ship right now. But, hey, even if those schools leave, to Josh's point, I mean, I still see Conference USA trying to survive and just adding some teams like, Jacksonville State, Sam Houston State, James Madison, Richmond, just, some teams and just trying to start it again. But right now, things do look.
What about Liberty? Thoughts on Liberty?
But if you're Liberty, do you want to join Conference USA? I mean, you already tried once, and I mean, you threw all the money in the world at them, and Conference USA just told you no.
That might be a little bit different situation now, though.
How bad do you need a conference if you're Liberty? I think
that's
it's
the
the real
thing.
question.
Yeah, I'd almost just rather stay independent instead of going to Conference USA. If I'm Liberty in the situation they're in right now, I'd almost just rather stay.
But
what
if
you
potential playoff structure, that definitely plays into it in needing to be a conference champion there. However, we don't know if that's going to end up coming to fruition either. But
and also you got to think Hugh Freeze is not always going to be there, so and you may not always have a coach like Hugh Freeze. So I mean, if Hugh Freeze leaves, you take a step back. Are you going to wish you were in a conference?
Well, I don't know. He might be there a little longer after that ULM loss. So, no, but I mean, that's a very fair point. I mean, we've already seen, LSU is going to open up. We see Washington State's opening up. I mean, there's going to be even more openings in Power 5 schools. So that is going to be something to watch. Like, what is Liberty without Hugh Freeze? And what is Liberty without Malik Willis?
Hey, let me ask one last question real quick, too. I mean, just throwing it out there, not saying that it's realistic, but look, it's been talked about on message boards endlessly. Is Conference USA, is there a chance that Conference USA folds at this point?
I mean, you got the commissioner already begging another conference to, hey, let's join forces and realign. And basically the AAC was like, no thanks. We'll just take 6-year teams and pull them into our conference. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not. If there's a time they're going to fold, to me, this would be it. To John's point, I mean, they were like, no, thank you. Or I think we're just going to go ahead and take 6 of whatever teams you got left. I see it kind of just being a buffet for other conferences coming in trying to just grab some teams. Like I don't know, man. That's a tough question.
And two, though, even if Conference USA folds, I mean, you've got the WAC, you've got the ASUN, you've got some other conferences that could potentially become a G5 conference if Conference USA folds too. So,
I'll tell you, one of the really sad things I thought about earlier with this too is just, and I mean, it's been said a little bit here, but UTEP, man, they're having such a big year.
I know.
They're kind of one of the teams that you're looking at. Yeah, they may get left behind here. And I hate to see that. They've been around for so long and they're finally having a year. It's like, okay, are they going to be enough to get an invite over to the Mountain West? If not, and Conference USA dies, then what? Are they going to survive as an independent, or are they going to have to drop back, or like you said, is one of these other conferences going to step up and I guess come up to FBS and maybe bring UTEP on as a part of that?
Yeah, I think the latter is more likely because from what I've been hearing, the Mountain West, and I love bowl eligible. Hey, that was my Sunday morning headline prediction last week that UTEP was going to beat La Tech and become bowl eligible, which they did, but it's just the Mountain West still just doesn't see them as a desirable team. And I mean, that's another reason why the AAC hurried up and wanted to get a couple of these Texas teams, Rice, North Texas, is that the Mountain West was rumored to be looking to move into the Texas territory to try to expand. And I don't know, it does suck to see UTEP being left behind, especially with, the way Dana Dimel has them playing right now.
And there's rumors that SMU could still go to the Mountain West regardless. So at least if you lose SMU and you lose Houston that you do still have that Texas presence with the schools that you just added there. So
right, I can see them going for Tulsa too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, I think that's enough our realignment talk for now. But as Baker mentioned earlier, just glad to see some dominoes actually start falling instead of just waiting for somebody to make the first move. So excited for those programs. And just excited to see how things look in a couple of years, for sure. But we do have some G5 headlines from week 7. Baker, you want to take those away?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, first and foremost, guys, I know I brought this up last week, and you guys kind of thought I was crazy, but hey, they're one bit closer here. The Bearcats, baby, they're up to number 2 in the nation. They got a chance for that number 1 spot. I know you said hold your horses, but they're getting there after that Iowa loss there. Next up, UTSA, they finally broke into the rankings this past weekend. UTEP, bowl eligible, like we mentioned. Central Michigan, they had a big win over Toledo in overtime there. San Diego State doing the same thing, but in double overtime with San Jose State on the road. Another big win there. Fresno shutting out a good Wyoming Cowboys team. Air Force also beating up Boise on the Smurf turf. And listen to this, baby. Like you said, UL Monroe, the Warhawks, taking it to Liberty this week in an insane upset. And finally, I've got to say it for what it is, and it hurts to say it, but my Lord, the Cajuns, man, they killed us. They took it to my mountain.
I'm sorry about that, buddy.
Oh. Yeah.
That's just a rough first quarter, really. That first quarter set the tone.
There's a lot of things rough, man.
Yeah.
I get heartburn thinking about it, but hey, it's all good. We'll come back.
Yes. Well, I guess we can go ahead and give our player of the week. And mine is, definitely it's got to be Jerome Ford from Cincinnati. 20 carries for 189 yards and 4 touchdowns, just lighting up the UCF defense. Just, shout out to him, and shout out to that offensive line too. Josh, I hope I didn't steal your. Do you want to go and give your?
You're taking my thunder. I was kind of going along the same line. I was going to give it to the offensive line for Cincinnati. Not only did Jerome Ford had a huge day, but they rushed for over 330 yards. I think they had a 336 total on the ground. They only gave up 1 sack. I think only 2 tackles for loss. That line really just dominated the whole day and really propelled that team for that dominating victory. Side note, Gus Malzahn left that game like immediately after they go to Birmingham to see his daughter and son. I think they released news today. I think everything was okay. I think a lot of people were worried that something was wrong, but I think everything was okay.
Yeah, that was a scary moment. He had to immediately leave the game and fly up to Birmingham. But I did. I'm glad to hear that everything is okay with his grandchild and of course with his with his daughter. Because I think she had just given birth. Was it just a few days ago before?
Yeah, just giving birth. Yeah, but scary situation. Have to leave. Straight from the game. But glad to hear everything's okay there. Baker, who's your player of the week?
Yeah, so honestly, man, first of all, same deal with what John said. Jerome Ford probably gets it runaway, but I'm just going to go out there and throw in one other guy that I think's deserving just so we have another guy. Carlton Marshall from Troy. Hey, we don't throw defensive players in there very often, but the guy had 18 tackles on Saturday, and you just don't see folks racking up that kind of number. You cut that in half, 9 tackles is a good game, like a really good game for most guys on a normal day. Well, this guy doubled that. He had 18 tackles, including 2 tackles for loss, and only 8 of those tackles were solo. That means he was in on 10 tackles, splitting those, with other guys, not to mention he had 8 on top of that. So, just an insane day for him.
Definitely, and good for Troy and getting the win over Texas State because, for a minute I was like, man, is Spavital really going to get this key Sunbelt win? But Troy was able to hold on and get a W. So good for Troy in that program. By I believe we hit on our recapping our games that we previewed last week. I know, Baker, you hit on the app, Louisiana. We kind of hit on Cincinnati. I mean, it was like what we said. That game was not close. It was 35-0 real quick. I mean, Cincinnati just dominated that game. UTEP 19-3 over La Tech. Score was not as close as it looks. I mean, UTEP just dominated that game from the get-go. And La Tech just poor offensive line play, just poor execution all around on the offensive side of the ball for the Bulldogs. But, yeah, shout out again to Dana Dimmel and the UTEP Miners getting bowl eligible for the first time since 2014. So good for those Miners. But I guess we can go ahead and move into previewing our 4 games that we have for you guys this week for Week 8. And what better way to start than another midweek game involving those App State Mountaineers. Coastal Carolina travels down to Boone, North Carolina to take on App State. This is a Wednesday night game, not Tuesday night. Last week was Tuesday, but this is a Wednesday night game at 6:30 p.m. Central Time kickoff, and it will be televised on ESPN2. Right now, Vegas does have Coastal as a 4-point favorite. And, Baker mentioned it earlier. App just did not look good at all last week at Louisiana and Lafayette. But, I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to Billy Napier and the Raging Cajuns. They came out to play. Like Josh mentioned earlier, too, just put them away real quick early on in the first half. But I mean, I don't think I've ever seen App Twitter like freaking out like that the way I saw last Tuesday night. I mean, you would think it was like a doomsday scenario.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't want to spoil my Sunday morning headline. But I mean, App is a 4-point home underdog to the team that you should have almost could have beat last year in Conway. Has Coastal really been tested? I mean, that's another question. Like, when you look at Coastal's schedule, I mean, who's the best team they played? Was it Buffalo? Or, I mean, I don't see where Coastal
is not having a great year, to be honest.
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm not going to give a prediction because I think this is going to be my Sunday morning headline. So I will let you guys take it away. But just glancing, hey, Coastal, are they really battle tested? App's battle tested. They've been in some ball games. But what we saw last week was kind of discouraging from App, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll put my 2 cents in and let Baker have a therapy session there for a little bit. And just a couple of things. I mean, Chase Bryce didn't help the situation with 2 picks last week. And I would say that run defense has me a little worried when playing this Coastal Carolina team that's been averaging 250 yards on the ground. I think App gave up almost 250 yards on the ground last week. So, I mean, they're definitely going to need some better line play, I feel like, on the defensive side of the ball to get pressure at least on McCall and see if they can slow down this ground attack from Coastal. But I kind of like Appalachian State in this spot. People I think feel like might be underestimating them a little bit. They are more battle tested. I just really don't feel like, to your point, John, I just don't think Coastal really has been tested. And I think this will be their first true test. I'd imagine the atmosphere in Boone will be pretty rocking and for this matchup. So, I like App to cover and possibly win in a close one. I think the over/under was at 60. That seems about right. I think the Mountaineers have it, Baker, probably by at least a field goal or a touchdown.
Well, I don't hate the calls, boys, but I got to ask you this. If I'm having a therapy session, which one of you boys are going to be my therapist here tonight?
Oh, Lord. I'm so messed up in the head. I don't know if you want me to.
Go for it.
Go. We'll be a tag team effort.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Listen, I mean, like you said, Louisiana played out of this world, and App played like they were on a whole nother planet, and not in a good way. There were, a lot of things going on last Tuesday night, and I think first and foremost, we've just got to hope that for App fans, they've got to hope that the boys just didn't have it going, and that's not who they are. Because honestly, the rest of the year so far leading up to that, they've looked like a different team. And I mean, you can credit a lot of that to Billy Napier and just how good Louisiana was. I mean, they looked completely different the other night than some of those games where they've struggled. And I don't know if that's just a matter of like matchups with their size against App's more smaller speed game that they play, or I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say what exactly it is, but I will tell you this: App and Coastal, comparing them, are very similar from that standpoint, which is a different ball game than what you saw with App versus Louisiana, in the fact that Coastal is also a small team that prides themselves on speed. Historically and now, really they've always had kind of a small O-line and a small D-line that's, really just makes their way with speed and just being kind of grinders, if you will, and guys that really work for what they get. And that's kind of how App's been in the past too. So you shouldn't see a game where App is getting overpowered like I think what Louisiana could do the other night. So that does change some of the dynamic there. Like you mentioned, really interesting to see how Coastal's going to react against a team that you feel, from all the games aside from the Louisiana game, seemed to be a decent opponent, because like you said, Coastal hasn't really faced a good opponent to this day. So I hear you. I hear what you're saying. But with me right now, my biggest worry is the performance that App showed. It's just a lot to be on the road, come back, and fix those issues that you had in 1 week's time, with so many issues that they did seem to show against a team that really did like to show a lot of running formations in Louisiana. And now they're going to see the same exact, not the same exact thing, but a team that really loves to pride themselves on running the ball in Coastal, not to mention an awesome quarterback in Grayson McCall. And App's got a couple of their defensive backs that either are hurt and, are probably missing the game, or they're going to be limping into the game this week. So I don't know, man. I'm scared of it. I think it's going to be too quick of a turnaround to make that kind of an impact. But again, I know it's late in the season almost at this point, but I don't think we know how good or how average, whatever you want to call them, Coastal is. Yeah, they've got that nice, pretty ranking beside their name, but they haven't really proven it to this point other than blowout wins over less superior teams. So maybe we'll find out something about them and App can pull it off, like you said. But I think I don't feel as confident this week after what I saw this past week. So that's my take on it.
I mean, there is a lot of unknowns to your point. I mean, that's a great point. I mean, what's the energy, what's the spirit's going to be like of this App team? And at least it's at home. And you can testify, I'm sure, that with the ranked opponent coming into your guys' stadium, it's going to be pretty lit. So hopefully that'll play a big factor.
Well, I hope so.
The Rock's going to be bumping, man.
Hey, I hope so, but I'll say this too, man. I mean, getting up to Boone on a weeknight is not easy. And yeah, a lot of folks did it for the Marshall game, but that was a Thursday night, which is getting close to the weekend. Getting up there on a Wednesday night, especially like a week after we just got blown out on national TV. So you're not going to have a lot of people like jumping at the bit to say, oh, we're really killing it right now. We're going to come up there. It's not as easy as you would normally see. So I do worry about the crowd, but you never know. I hope it's good. Like you said, it's the big name team in the current landscape of college football. I mean, that'll be the highest ranked team that's ever played in Boone, no doubt about it. So.
Yeah, and what Josh mentioned earlier too, like Chase Bryce is going to have to play better in this ball game to have for App to have a shot, because it just looked like Bryce and the receivers, like something was just off last week in Lafayette. I don't know what it was, but they just definitely looked off. And yeah, Bryce had a couple picks, but definitely need to clean that up to have a shot against Coastal, because Coastal last time they played was at Arkansas State, where they trounced the Wolves 52-20. So I don't know. Coastal's coming in hot.
I hate to use these words about Bryce, and I don't know that this is the case, but the one thing that comes to mind that I worry about is because some games he looks better than others, and the games that he looks bad, it just makes me think of, is he damaged goods? Has he been hurt by the season with Duke, where he was getting constantly pressured, constantly rushed and sacked, and now he just, I don't know, just gets scared when he starts to see pressure. Sometimes I worry about that with him, and he overthrows the ball trying to not make an interception, because he definitely has a habit of, he doesn't usually underthrow. He overthrows the ball, and that's a problem of his. That's when he was missing receivers the other night, if you paid attention to him. So I don't know. I hope it's not the case, but sometimes I worry about it with him.
Good point. And also another thing to look for, is Peoples going to be back this week?
Supposedly, but I mean, again, there were people saying that there was a good shot last week, but he was a game time decision, didn't suit up. But I mean, supposedly he's in a lot better position at this point. So yeah, it's the word, but until you see it out there, how can you really say for sure, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to Saturday, where we've got a great game in the MAC, as the Western Michigan Broncos travel down to Toledo to take on the Rockets. This will be a Saturday afternoon game at 2:30 p.m. Central Time, and this game will be televised on CBS Sports Network. Right now, Vegas does have Western Michigan is a road 2.5-point favorite at Toledo. But I mean, this is a very important game in the MAC West, because I mean, Toledo's already got 2 conference losses. If you lose this one, I mean, you're pretty much done. It's for having a shot in the MAC championship. They had a hell of a game at Central Michigan this past Saturday in overtime, losing to Central Michigan. Just a very close game at Central Michigan. And on the other side, Western Michigan coming off of an ass beating. Yeah, I mean, they beat Kent State 64-31. I mean, my God. I mean, show out Western Michigan. I mean, Ellaby, threw for 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards. Tyler had almost 200 yards on the ground, 169. But just showing out on the offensive side of the ball. It was good to see the Broncos.
50 yards of offense last week.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do better than that. And I mean, and defense did a decent job against, Kent State. I mean, they gave up 31 points, but still, we know the Flashes, are very good on the offensive side of the ball. And we thought going in, that they had one of the best quarterbacks in the league, too, which they still might. But just good for Western Michigan, looking good. But I mean, this is an important game for Western Michigan as well, because they've already got a conference loss. So a very important game for both schools. We know how the weird game ended last year between these two schools. It's always a really fun game when Western Michigan and Toledo play. So looking forward to another tight ball game with these two schools in Toledo. But, I mean, it's all on the line for these schools. They both need to win desperately, and they both kind of know that, if they lose this game, they're, hopes of going to the MAC championship might crumble. So looking forward to this game. Really quickly, I do like Western Michigan into this game. I mean, they're just coming in hot. You kind of worried a couple weeks ago after getting whooped by Ball State, how they were going to show out, but just dominating a really good Kent State team, at home just, has me ready to pull for the Broncos and get this W. And Toledo coming off of that two tough losses. Actually, you go back to the NIU game, losing a close one at home to Northern Illinois. Just Toledo, 3-4 overall, 1-2 in conference. Kind of seems that they kind of struggled after losing that Notre Dame game. Things kind of fell apart. Got whooped by Colorado State. But a decent Mountain West team. But what do you guys read on this? I just when I look at it more and do research on it, I just really like Western Michigan in this spot to get this win.
For me, like, on paper, statistically, they're close to about the same. Yards allowed on defense, Western Michigan allows like 320. I think Toledo's around 315. Offensively, they both average 230, 250 in the air, about 160, 170 on the ground. The differentiator for me, I feel like the Toledo defense is a little bit more stingy on giving up points. They only give up 18.7 points per game compared to Western Michigan's 26.3. Toledo, coming off two tough losses, really, versus NIU at Central Michigan, that overtime loss. And I really think this is their opportunity to turn it around. If they don't do it here, I don't see, I think it could be a tough sledding for the rest of the year, at least from a momentum standpoint. But I don't know. I was going back and forth in this game, but I kind of am leaning towards Toledo. After that beat down of Kent State last week, I almost wonder, hopefully you wouldn't think Western Michigan would overlook Toledo, but I think Toledo is going. They really have something to prove, that they have more to lose in this game, I feel like, than Western Michigan, and so for that reason, I'm kind of leaning that way. I think it is going to be a super close game, and it probably will be back and forth there for a little while. I think turnovers will probably play important in this game, and I'm going to give the edge to Toledo.
So I'm a little off on what you're saying there, Josh. Honestly, a little different from you, where I see Western Michigan as a team that, I don't know, I think there's just more offensive production and more offensive firepower there so far this season than what Toledo has been able to show. Not that Toledo has been like down by any means necessarily. I mean, their run game has been really good, but as far as passing the ball, they're only averaging like 225 yards a game passing, which I don't see as a great number necessarily. And I think Western Michigan's really been able to show out. And one thing that worries me about Toledo, they're coming off of a pretty emotional game against Central Michigan where they lost in overtime after they really fought back hard there in the fourth quarter to even send that game to overtime against Central. And Western Michigan's coming off of a game that really didn't take as much out of them by what they did last week. So I like Western with their offensive production there and the fact that they're not as, I don't know, emotionally drained, if you will, this week coming off of what they did last week. I like them a lot. And honestly, I just don't think Toledo's having the year that we're necessarily accustomed to. And it's early. And honestly, they still could, I don't know, move that forward. But I like Western Michigan and what they're doing this year. The original, what is it, Ski-U-Ma, Row the Boat, something, I don't even know what it is, PJ Fleck, all that. I'm going with the Broncos.
Like, I totally get what you're saying. I do. But, like, if you take away really that game last week, if you look, I mean, they're not really scoring that many points in their wins. They did score 44 in Pittsburgh, but, I mean, 23 to beat San Jose, 24 to beat Buffalo, 28 to beat Illinois State. I mean, I think they probably do. They do have more firepower than Toledo, but I don't think it's that much different. I mean, than what Toledo's capable of. Like, I don't think that offensively the gap's that huge, and defensively, like, I don't know. I just feel like Toledo's team's a little bit more stingier. I don't know. I see what you're saying. I do see what you're saying, though, but.
I will say this, both of them have been tested this year.
That's
true. Good thing. It's not like one of them hasn't played, very good opponents. The other one has. Like, I feel like it's a game of teams that are on equal footing in terms of what they've done so far. And, I mean, my Lord, you look at both of them. Western's had that win over Pitt, and Toledo, just barely lost to Notre Dame. So they've both given some Power 5 teams hell earlier in the season. So, hey, it's a good matchup on paper.
It is. It'll be a good game.
Yeah. No doubt about it.
Well, speaking of good games, we've got another great game in the Mountain West at 6 p.m. Central Time Saturday night as the San Diego State Aztecs travel down to take on the Air Force Falcons in a very pivotal Mountain West showdown. I mean, this will also be televised on CBS Sports Network, so you can just leave your television on CBS Sports Network coming from the Western Michigan Toledo game into this San Diego State Air Force game. And guys, I mean, this is going to be a hell of a game in the Mountain West. You've got one of the best rushing attacks in the whole NCAA or in the FBS against one of the best rushing defenses in the FBS, the San Diego State.
Defense. Yeah.
So I am so excited to see what happens in this game. Both teams are coming off of wins. Well, obviously, San Diego State is still undefeated, 6-0. Air Force is 6-1. The only loss still was a weird loss against Utah State, which is looking like that won't be as good of a Mountain West team as we thought. But still, Air Force went to the Smurf turf and got a W at Boise. 24-17, looked really good in that ball game. I don't know. I'm just so excited to see what happens in this game. Very quickly, Air Force is a 3.5 point favorite in this game, according to Vegas, and their over/under is 40. And
I think it's be lower than that.
I was gonna say I like it in the 30s. This is gonna be a low-scoring ball game, but I think San Diego State takes their first L of the year here at Air Force. So go ahead and give me the Air Force Falcons in a very tight, low-scoring ball game. I like it 17-13 Air Force over San Diego State. What's you guys read on this game?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that you got two stingy defenses and two teams that like to run the ball. So, yes. I mean, it's going to be, if you like defensive games, this is going to be it. And, it wouldn't surprise me if it was a 14-7 kind of thing. Like, I think it's going to be really low scoring. It's going to be a quick game. It's going to be a physical game, which I don't know about you guys. High scoring stuff's fun, but I love watching two great defenses go head to head.
Same.
You rarely see that anymore. But I really like Air Force because, I mean, if you had to pick a team who's going to win by running the ball on defense, I mean, right now I'd probably Air Force would be in that conversation. And I know San Diego State likes to do the same thing, but I really like these Falcons being able to go on to the Smurf turf, getting that win. San Jose State's coming off a double overtime. San Diego State's coming off a double overtime win against San Jose State. Close game, physical game. That was a 19-13 game. I really like the Falcons. And John, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Baker, you differ?
It's so real quick. It's so weird seeing a double overtime game and the score is just 19-13. It's so weird. Yeah.
Well, here's my question. First and foremost, who gets the most passing yards in this game? We talking San Diego State?
Okay. Over under passing yards combined. I would set it at 200.
Ooh, yeah.
Combined.
Seems high.
Say a little high.
I was going to say, I'll take under all day on that now.
I tell you, man. No, I mean, listen, this is a old school game. Like you said, like it's defense, it's run the ball, it's smash mouth. It's like, hey, this game's going to be over in 5 minutes before you know it. Like, right. You're gonna have time to, like, I don't know, set yourself up for like a date 20 minutes before the game even ends. So, yeah, like, hey, boys, get out there on Tinder if you don't have a girlfriend or something like that at this point. Like, I don't know, figure out.
Even if you do, I mean, who knows?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
I'm not advocating for that. So,
I'm just kidding. Me either.
That's all you, bro.
Me either.
But no, man, it's what a game it's going to be. Honestly, like you said, I'm with you in the Air Force camp. I like that they're at home, and this is kind of the same thing that I said a minute ago about Toledo. San Diego State also coming off of an emotional win there, double overtime win over San Jose State. So, they really put a lot into that on the road as well, and now they're having to go on the road for a second week here and go out to Colorado Springs there to Air Force, and that's just really a tough place to play. It's a tough team to go against, and I'm telling you, man, like, I think it's going to wear and tear on them, and I think Air Force is going to take them and bring them down for the first loss of the season. So I'm with you boys on that notion, and excited to watch this one. Really am.
And I do want to give a quick shout out to Brady Hoke and the job that he's doing at San Diego State. Because honestly, guys, when they made that hire, I was like, really, Brady Hoke? Why? But I mean, he's doing a hell of a job. So I wanted to give a quick kudos to him.
He's a San Diego State guy, man. He's a legend.
Yeah, no, for sure. Couldn't do it in Michigan.
Right? Yeah.
But who can? Who can?
Nice. Well, we do have one more final game. It's a Conference USA game, and this was our G5 Beat Game of the Week selected by you guys on our Twitter machine. If you're not following us on Twitter, make sure you give us a follow at twitter.com/the G5 Beat. But thank you, as always, for everybody that voted and shared it with others. We definitely appreciate all your feedback. But yeah, the UTSA Roadrunners travel down to Ruston, Louisiana to take on the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. And, they're going to kill me. UTSA guys and fans, I'm so sorry. This should have been up at the top of the show. UTSA is ranked for the first time in program history at number 24 in the AP poll. So quick shout out to those UTSA Roadrunners doing a hell of a job with Jeff Trailer.
You go Roadrunners.
Yeah. So
hey, John, we included it in the headline of the week, man. Trust me, we covered it for you.
Well, I feel like I should have said it because I've been told that UTSA, hashtag rank UTSA for a while now. So I feel like I let a lot of our listeners down for not mentioning that at the top of the show. But hey, I did mention them in the come to the AAC, so I guess I kind of talked about them. So. But anyway, this game is going to be a 6 p.m. Central Time kickoff. Speaking of realignment, this game is going to be televised on Stadium, Conference USA. But guys, La Tech coming off of a tough L in El Paso, 19-3. Not off to a good start. 2-4 overall, 1-1 in Conference USA. Kind of seems like this might be desperation mode, for Skip Holtz and company with La Tech, like almost a must-win game. But I don't think they do it. I think UTSA, they're a 7-point favorite right now, according to Vegas. I mean, they've just got so much momentum rolling on with that program, with everything going on. I like UTSA by double digits in this game. I did not like anything that I saw out of the La Tech offense. In El Paso, I love UTSA's defense. We've talked so many times about how that defensive front for UTSA is just so good and able to wreak havoc in the backfield. I just don't see Kendall, having any time to throw. I just like UTSA in this ball game by double digits. And if La Tech goes to 2-5 and 1-2, in Conference USA play.
Good
guys, it's off the rails real quick. No, it's not as bad as North Texas with Seth Luttrell, but we've got some fiery message boards right now on Louisiana Tech, possibly calling for Holtz to go, which still seems crazy to me. But
they can get Coach O now if they want.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if Ogeron wants to stay in Louisiana, yeah, go for it. But yeah, guys, I like UTSA in this ball game big. I like to keep that train going with Jeff Trailer and just get a double-digit win on the road and improve to 8-0 overall and 4-0 in Conference USA. And I feel like we say this a lot. It's just ramping up for that UAB UTSA game in a few weeks. But hey, also I'll say UTSA goes to El Paso in a couple weeks too. So that might be a game. Yeah, I was gonna say, looking, at the beginning of the year, we were like, that should be pretty much an easy win for UTSA. But the way UTEP's looking right now, better look out. But I do think Jeff Trailer takes care of business this Saturday in Ruston.
Really, to me, I mean, La Tech gives up more points than they score. They give up 31, score 28. They give up more yards than they gain. They give up 457, gain 390 a game. I mean, that. And a team that's coming in that's undefeated, averaging 450 yards a game, very balanced team, only gives up 323, scores 38. I mean, that to me, that says it all right there. Like, I don't know how the line's only 7 in this game. I really don't. over unders 59. I don't mean to be too harsh on La Tech, but I mean, I just sorry, La Tech fans. I don't think it's going to be close. I think the Roadrunners are going to come in here and just take care of business. And I mean, I really, unfortunately, don't have that much more to add. I just think it's.
And it's just disappointing too, because
Yeah.
Josh, I know heading into the season, you were kind of high on La Tech.
I thought. Yeah, I was. I thought they were going to have a pretty good year this year and be way more competitive in some of these games. But I mean, last week, I mean, that was brutal, man. That was brutal.
Yeah, offensive line has to play better, and
yeah,
I mean, what they're going up against this week, it's not going to get better.
It's not going to be good. So I hate it, and I'm sorry, La Tech fans. And it's good when La Tech is good, and I wish they would, get back that way. But to your point, John, if they lose this game, I mean, there's going to be some people calling for Skip Holtz's head. But unfortunately, I don't see this going their way.
All right, well, listen, fellas, first and foremost, I'm going to try to embarrass you guys a little bit. I think just because of what y'all said a minute ago, I think that you both owe the listeners your best Coach O Go Dogs impression here in case he were to become the Tech head coach. So let's hear it.
Go Dogs!
Go Dogs!
Oh man! All right, that was good.
John, you need to get your daughter on here. She does the best.
Oh yes, my daughter Nora. Oh yeah, she's pretty good at doing the Coach O impersonation. So we need to get her on.
There you go. No, but hey, listen. In all seriousness, related to the game here, I think that Tech's going to have to rely on passing the ball like we've talked about in the past here a little bit with UTSA. Their pass defense hasn't been amazing. That's kind of their weakness, if anything. And, I mean, if Tech wants a chance, they're going to have to block, give their quarterback some time and see what he can do with it. I mean, they're not amazing passing the ball, but they're not bad so far this year as far as yardage and production goes there for Tech. But I don't think they're going to be able to run on UTSA by any means there. Mm-hmm. So that's the key to it for them if you look at it, from their point of view. But listen, aside from that, man, the reality is I just see UTSA as being too much. Both sides of the ball, defense, offense, it doesn't matter. Whatever they want to do, I see them winning in every facet of the game this week. And I don't see them, I joke about it here, but some teams, this is a reality. Like, you get that new shiny number beside you, that little ranking. You see it in the ESPN app. You pull it up there, and you're big on yourself. But listen, I don't see UTSA getting a big head here. I see them keeping cool here and trailers staying on them. And I see the boys coming out with the win over Tech this week.
And real quick on that, I do have a UAB story. I feel like I always have a UAB story, but way back in the day, they used to have a poll called I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called the BCS poll. Y'all remember the BCS? So UAB actually got into the top 25 on the BCS poll for the first time back in the 2004 year, and that very week went to New Orleans to take on Tulane. I believe, it was Tulane. A not good Tulane. So this is when Tulane was not good, and UAB lost that game. So it's funny that you bring that up, Baker, because teams do kind of see that number next to their name and get kind of, I don't want to say cocky, but just
complacent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that other team. So hey, maybe if you're Louisiana Tech fan listening, you're like, hey, maybe we can catch them. Riding high. Hey, they're going to the AAC, or seem to be, according to Pete Thamel, going to the AAC. La Tech, our name wasn't on there, so let's show these boys, up. So maybe Skip Holtz can rile them up and get them to play. But I don't see it happening. I do place a lot of confidence in Jeff Traylor and that Roadrunner team. So glad we all agree that UTSA is going to get that win again and stay undefeated and maybe get into the slide and go up a couple more slots, and try to get closer in the rankings. But just congrats to them on getting ranked for the first time ever in program history. So really good for UTSA in that program. Now, guys, I guess we can go ahead and go into our Sunday morning headlines. And I'll go ahead and start us off. And App's back, baby. I think App takes down Coastal in the upset. 4-point dog, home dog. I like Sean Clark in the spot. I do think that he has a lot of film to, that he's going over with the guys, from the Louisiana game. A lot of stuff that they can correct and get corrected for Coastal. You look at the game last year, App really, as Baker mentioned earlier, matches up well with Coastal and arguably should have won that game in Conway last year. If a couple plays break differently, then App does get that win over a ranked Coastal team on the road. But I definitely like App in this spot and a little revenge factor too. And remembering what happened last year, I do hope that Peoples gets to play. I think he will. But just a very, very important game for App this Wednesday night in Boone because, as I said on Twitter, following the Louisiana game, App still controls their own destiny. If they win out, they get to go to the Sun Belt Championship and more than likely will get a rematch with Louisiana. Now, granted, it'll probably be at Lafayette again, but I just like App in this spot, and I think that they do get it done against Coastal. And going back, I just don't think Coastal is battle-tested now, and think they'll be in for a rude awakening. But Josh, what's your Sunday morning headline?
All right, I'm going to preface this by saying I know it's not a G5 team. Some people associate them as a G5 team. I know they're independents. I don't want to make anybody mad. But my headline is Good Night, Demon Deacons. And I think the Army goes in and upsets a undefeated Wake Forest team. I think Wake Forest is due for a loss. Just let's face it, Wake Forest is not meant to ever go undefeated. And I think Army's set up right to do it. I know it's not a G5 team. They're independent, but I did want to give them a little love.
Nice.
Well, guys, here's a question for you. Have you ever seen a cat walk on a piece of plywood before?
Typically that's not something I would look out for.
Well, hey, good news because you're going to see it this week. The Cougars are walking the plank right off the top.
Oh, nice.
Taking down Houston. That's my call for Sunday morning.
Nice. I can see that as well. Yeah, ECU. Houston's playing pretty good ball, but have they been tested? So that's another thing. East Carolina's been tested. They played in a couple, really good ball games, and as I mentioned, earlier last week or 2 weeks ago, I can't even remember. But UCF should have beaten, ECU should have beaten UCF. So definitely can't wait to see what happens there in Houston. But maybe Houston will prove us wrong and get the win. But guys, we do have some games for week 9 that we're going to preview for you guys next week. We definitely have 2 that we're going to for sure. Fresno State at San Diego State and SMU at Houston. And we do have 4 games that we're going to put on the Twitter poll Sunday morning that we need you guys to help us pick a 3rd game to preview for next week. And those 4 games are going to be Boise State at Colorado State, UTEP at FAU, UCF at Temple, and Troy at Coastal Carolina. So be on the lookout for that Sunday morning. And, if you're not following us already, definitely give us a follow at twitter.com/the G5Beat. And also, if you're not subscribed to us on a podcast platform, go ahead and hit that follow or subscribe button, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Amazon, wherever. Just make sure that you're subscribed to us. But on that note, guys, you got anything else before we wrap it up?
Yeah, if you're not subscribed to us, what are you really doing with your life at this point? Come on, guys.
Yeah, it's kind of sad and ridiculous. Come on. I have like 14 Twitter followers. Okay, so this is a guy coming from experience.
When's the last time you've logged into your personal Twitter?
I don't know. There's probably cobwebs on my Twitter profile. Me and the tweeter don't get along. I don't know why.
I understand. Well, all right, guys. Hey, y'all enjoy watching some football, and we'll be back next week to recap what happens in week 8 and get you ready for week 9.